Good morning, seventh grade class. So, for today's lesson, what you're going to do is you're going to learn how to take notes when doing a reading um, in social studies. So, the reading that we're going to use today is called The Judicial Branch in a Flash. Okay, and as you can see, it's up here on the screen, and the reading is 2 pages long. So this is page 1 and page 2. So I'm going to go over the steps that you would use in order to take good notes when reading. What you're going to do is I will show you an example of how to get started, and then you are going to finish the reading notes for this reading in today's lesson. So the first thing that you need to do is when taking good notes is you need to write down the title of the reading. Okay, so what I did is I already started, so I wrote down judicial branch in a flash, and I wrote down the lesson number. So then that way, whenever you're taking notes or you're looking at your notes, you know what lesson to go to. And this is most useful when you are taking notes from a PDF or a file, and not necessarily from a textbook. So what I did was I wrote that down. So I have this title. So maybe what I'll do is I will put it in a different color so it's kind of noticeable. Okay, so I started with page 1 and I put that there so that you know whenever you want to go back to your notes, you know where to look. Okay, so one of the things that is very important is to write down the title of the section that you're going to read. So I wrote down it's all about the robes. And as you see, that is the first paragraph on your reading. So I wrote down the title, and then what you're going to do is you are going to read the paragraph, and I want you to write 1 or 2 sentences in your own words about the reading. So if you want, you can pause, and at this time you can read through the paragraph and then restart the video, and you can come back. Okay, so now that you've read the 2 sentences that I wrote to summarize, that's kind of what you're doing when you're taking notes, is summarizing the important parts of your reading. I wrote the highest court in the U.S. is the Supreme Court, and it's the only court created by the Constitution. Now, this is something that students maybe overlook when they do their assignments. They don't spell check. And this little red squiggly line means that I spelled Constitution wrong. So I'm just going to go ahead and correct it here. The second sentence I wrote was the Constitution also says that the legislative branch can create other courts. So I put these sentences in my own words. So you can see that they're in, like, if we look at the second one, the Constitution also says the legislative branch can create other courts. If I go to that, it says here, the Constitution also allows Congress to create other courts. So remember, Congress, legislative branch, it's the same thing. Okay, so now we're going to go, before we move on to the next section, as you can see in the reading, there is a bolded word, Supreme Court. Okay, so these are vocabulary words. And in this case, we already explained what the Supreme Court is. It's the highest court in the U.S. So we don't need to make note of that vocabulary word. So let's move on to the next section. So the next one is 2 court systems. So I already wrote 2 court systems. Okay, so please pause and take a moment to read the reading, this little paragraph here. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to note is the 2 court systems are the federal court system and the state court system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write those down on my paper. Okay, so now I need to explain them in my own words. So this one says for the federal court system deals with disputes about laws that apply to the entire United States. Okay, so to put that in my own words, the federal court system hears arguments about laws for the entire U.S. Okay, so the state court systems says mostly deal with disputes about state laws. Okay, here's arguments about state laws. Okay, so those are the two court systems, and I want you to just take a moment, read through the paragraph, and see if there's anything else that's important that we need to make note of. Okay, so now that you took a look at the rest of the reading, there's one other important information that we can get from this paragraph. And it's this sentence here. The good news is that state court systems usually work just like the federal court system. So I'm going to make another note here. State and federal court systems work in the same way. Okay, so that's another important thing that we need to take note of. Okay, and the other thing is you have these visuals here. Okay, so you also should make note of any type of visuals that might be here. And next to the paragraph that we're looking at has a map of the United States, and it says the federal system is divided into districts called circuits. So this map is most likely showing you the different circuits. So this is a vocabulary word, and this is not in the reading. And see, we have these bolded words, federal court system and state court system. Those are vocabulary words, but we already explained them. But this circuits thing is new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write vocabulary under my writing here that I have on this paragraph. And I'm going to put that it's below picture of US. Okay, and I'm going to put it in some type of bold so that I can see that it's something different or a different color, however you want to do it. And I'm going to write the word circuit. It's totally spelled wrong. C-I-R-C-U-I-T-S. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the definition in my own words. So the federal system is divided into districts. So the federal court, the division of the federal court system. Okay, and that's all I need. So now let's go to the next paragraph. Okay, so the next one says which court to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that down. Which court to use. Oops. Okay, so I want you to take a moment and read the reading and then come back. Okay, so now that you've read the paragraph, which court to use, it's time to take a look at what you need to take notes on. So it's very important to look at in this paragraph. It talks about federal courts and state courts and what types of courts or what types of cases each court hears. So I already did my notes, and the first one I wrote was federal courts hear cases dealing with the U.S. Constitution, federal laws, and arguments between people in different states. The other sentence that I wrote that deals with this paragraph is the state courts hear cases that deal with state laws, the state constitution, or disagreements between citizens of the state. So these are the two important things that I got from the reading. Now, next to the reading, there's this little diagram, and it says most legal issues that people have get resolved in the state court system. So this is also very important to know. So even though I told you like 1 to 2 sentences, sometimes you need to add a little bit more because there's more information involved. So I wrote a sentence that says most disagreements are resolved in the state courts. And as you can see, I put all of my notes in my own words. And the importance of you doing that is that It helps you and it helps me understand your comprehension of the reading. Okay, so now it is your job to finish the notes for this reading. So remember what I went over with you before at the beginning of the reading, and make note of the page. Make sure that you write down the titles of the sections that you are reading. Write 1 to 2 sentences. Sometimes you need to write more, summarizing the most important things from the reading in your own words. Also, take note of any vocabulary that might be new to you that you don't already explain in your summary of the reading section. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email, and I will be glad to help you with this assignment.